arms towards the sun. You feel the warmth of the rays, and then you know you're alive and you don't have to be afraid.
Welcome to the Bassline. Nurse Michele is a champion of medical freedom. She is an outstanding contributor to the Stop the Shots community, and she is the host of Nurse Michele Talks, an outstanding podcast. I'm truly honored to welcome to the Bassline today the courageous and experienced Nurse Michele. How are you this afternoon, Nurse Michele?
Such a pleasure to be with you. I always enjoy Stop the Shots and all that you do in that group and everything that's being successfully accomplished with that group. So it's an honor to be here with you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And thanks for the times when you jumped in and co-hosted with me spontaneously. I know you're a good host, so I gave it a shot, and you've helped me out on a few occasions, which I really appreciate. So I'm going to make a few announcements here, and then we're going to get into this outstanding conversation. First of all, everyone, I'm actually headed to France this evening. So this program is going to be aired in over a week. This Friday's program and the following Friday are pre-recorded shows. And I guess when I say this Friday, that would have meant last Friday for the people who are hearing this right now. But yeah, I have to do 2 pre-recorded shows because I'm going to be in remote France, and I don't want to rely on an internet connection that could be sketchy or anything like that. So I said, let's do some pre-recorded episodes, and those are just fine. I always love to hear from the PRN audience when they call in. So that's always the thing that we miss out on when I do a pre-recorded show. But other than that, we have an outstanding guest, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation. Couple quick things. Of course, we have our 5-8 healing jam sessions in Harlem. The next one is going to be Sunday, September 28th, 3:30 p.m. The venue is Rock Mill Fitness. That's 274 Lenox Avenue, just south of 125th Street. Please come and join us. It's been an incredible experience meeting audience members from this show, and it's a really unique sound that we've cultivated, and it's in the 5-8 frequency, which I believe more and more is the proper tuning of our instruments to align us with the color spectrum and to align us with the frequencies of the sun and the frequency of our own hearts, for example. So yeah, please join us for the next 5-8 healing jam session. Also, of course, please go to jeremiahhosea.com, buy the theme song of this show, Love's the Highest Truth, or any of the original audio over there. If you want a chess lesson, I'm a chess instructor. That is my business. So remotelearningchess.com is my company. Sign up for a lesson, sign up a loved one for a lesson. It makes a great gift as well. Sign up a friend or a family member for a package of chess lessons. I'm a passionate and experienced teacher. And also my Substack, of course, look up Jeremiah Hosea on Substack. Please become a subscriber. If you can be a paid subscriber, that's incredible. If you cannot afford to be a paid subscriber at the moment, that's fine. Please become a free subscriber right away and check out my thoughts over there. That's me taking the time to address any number of topics that I haven't heard addressed elsewhere. And I would love to hear your feedback in the comment section of any of my 31 articles that I've published. And I'm working, of course, on my 32nd article, which I will complete in a matter of days. So all that out of the way, we have a great guest here, passionate medical freedom warrior and podcast host and nurse and mother. And is it true that you're a grandmother, Nurse Michele?
I am.
Yeah, I just don't believe that from looking at you. You were just too young to be a grandmother. I can't believe it.
I am more than half of 100 years old.
Oh my goodness, I can't believe that. So I guess whatever you're doing now, you need to share with us your anti-aging protocol, because whatever you're doing, it's working great.
It's
Yeah, absolutely.
Pursuing joy and determined. It's being determined to pursue joy. I think that's what it is. That you make lemonade no matter what lemons get thrown at you.
Yeah, I love that attitude. And I just have to say, since you said that, I performed yesterday at a reggae concert for the legendary Beres Hammond, who's an absolute legend in the world of reggae, at an incredible venue in Long Island called the Paramount Theater. And I was just I'm just happy to be alive, I have to say. I mean, I really hope people can find a way to just be happy to be alive. And I think that's so good for your health right there. I mean,
It is a
I'm waiting.
choice.
Yeah, I meet the keyboard player in the Bronx. We drive all the way out to Long Island. We're the first ones there. We're waiting for a sound check that's not going to happen for hours. We do our sound check, then we wait another couple hours so that we could play. And long before the sound check happens, we're just waiting, like the game called Hurry Up and Wait. I'm just so happy to be there.
Oh,
And I realized that,
me too.
a big part of being a musician has been accepting the blessing. I was just realizing it or thinking of it in those terms yesterday, that just I'm so glad to have reached a point in my life and in my professional life as a musician that I accept the blessing of being able to do that work, and
Yeah.
to really know that without any hesitation or any disbelief that you're there because you're supposed to be there.
Yeah, I don't think everybody's had the gift of having their gift being made known to them. They aren't aware of their own gifts that they have, and they may think that people like yourself that are musicians or public speakers or whatever kind of profession you fill in the blank, they don't see in themselves a capacity to have that kind of brightness and enjoy doing something they enjoy. But it is possible. You've been put here for a reason. Your fingerprint is different from anybody else's in the world. It's never been here before. You have a unique insight and unique ability that nobody else does. So I would challenge anybody listening to discover it, discover what your unique reason for being here is.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that sentiment. So let's get started in terms of you telling us about your background a little bit. What is your experience as a nurse? Are you a particular kind of nurse? How long have you been in nursing? Just tell us all about your experience,
Okay.
please.
Okay. Well, I was raised a rural Georgia girl, so people may pick up on my Southern accent that's
Mm.
there. And I knew at a very young age that I was on a mission. I won't tell that whole story, but at 13 years old, there was something made very clear to me about a mission I was supposed to be on. And I've always been on it, and I knew that I would be, among the healers of the world, meaning somebody who's supposed to touch the lives of others and make an impact, and just try to make things better for people. For whatever reason, my whole life has always kind of drawn people toward me and that are troubled, people who have a lot of trouble. I've heard some of the most shocking stories of the most terrible things in people's lives. I'm not sure what it is about my face that does seem to want to reveal that. People want to reveal things to me. But I was made aware very young that there's a great darkness out there, and that people don't always have their face may be smiling, but there may be something behind them that has happened in their past. So it drew me toward a healing career, and I wanted to be a nurse, and I became a nurse in the 80s. And I specialize in high risk obstetrics. I love the high risk pregnant woman, love the whole concept of babies and birthing babies, and ended up being an infertile person myself. So that was really quite a heartbreak to be an infertile person. But I've been a nurse for 37 years, and it was predominantly in high risk OB and inpatient education. And as I started wanting to build a family myself, I married a high school sweetheart, and always wanted a large family, but did not have the ability to do that. So I ended up with, over the course of many years, with about 5 pregnancies, but 3 of them are children that I am raising now. 2 didn't make it out, and then out into the world. And then I adopted 3. And all 3 of my adopted children are all different colors. I told him, I said, the only thing that's missing in our family is an Asian looking person. So if somebody picks an Asian person, we'll have it all covered. So our family looks quite unique and diverse. But I also am a divorced woman after all those years. So that's a reality of my life as well.
Yeah.
But as far as nursing goes, I am a 37-year nurse, and because I was pretty dedicated to a belief system about education, pretty young with my firstborn child. My parents are both educators, public educators, and were telling us about the shocking changes that were happening within the government school system, where education was basically being hijacked, and that they really couldn't educate the kids the way they wanted to anymore. And they felt like, it was all coming down really at a federal level more than a local level. They had 3 kids. I'm the oldest of 3, and we all 3 gave them 16 grandchildren between us. And with those 16 grandchildren, 100% of them have all been homeschooled. So I homeschooled for 31 years. And my kids are ages 35, 27, two 23-year-olds, a 22-year-old, and a son that's my last one's about to graduate, and he's 18. So I've been doing that for a long time. So I put my nursing on hold for that season. And because I had two major medical kids, that it actually just advanced me intellectually. I became a major medical person myself with a lot of stressors in my life, and was among the extremely medically complex people of the world. And if you are out there listening and you're among the medically complex, you understand that it's a lonely place to be because the doctors and our medical system is failing us. It is a almost untouchable system that basically just wants to medicate you and not get to the root cause. So, so between my own children's medical crises and my own medical crises, I was being prepared for what was going to happen in 2020. And that I'll go into that a little bit more, but I mean, I do have I know you want to ask me some more about other things. So it'll pop up in that, but I'm a retired nurse, essentially home educating my kids and helping develop them out into the world. Two of them are college educated before they finish their college degrees, before their high school degrees. And then and then COVID hits, right? And all of a sudden Nurse Michele is activated. So since COVID hit, the reason why Nurse Michele got reactivated is because my whole family, there were 4 kids at the time who all got COVID and 2 parents. And with everybody sick at home with COVID in July of 2020, honestly, it could have really been bad if the disease had been all that they said it was, right? But it was only a risk for somebody like myself. Everybody else was shooting basketball by day 3, but it was put upon my heart to kind of video blog the whole thing and post it on my Facebook account, my personal Facebook account. I had no idea it was going to be the launching of Nurse Michele Talks. And all I did was kind of just let everybody witness it, because I didn't want people to be afraid. And I thought, well, if they witness it, well, if anybody wasn't afraid, they were afraid by the time they finished watching Michele, because Michele ended up in the COVID unit. And that is what happened, is I woke up in the COVID unit to what was actually happening. And the rest, I will answer on the rest of your questions, because I have worked more hours than I've ever worked in my entire career now as Nurse Michele, post-COVID era Michele.
Wow. Okay. So my next question, which you sort of alluded to, is what do you give yourself on your COVID report card in terms of how quickly you were able to assess that things were awry, things were amiss? You know, like I said, I don't want to play revisionist historian here. I can only give myself like maybe a B+, because I didn't just reject the whole thing right away. It took me some time to realize, well, wait a second, some of this stuff just doesn't make sense. As a matter of fact, a good friend of mine who's been a guest on this program, my friend Craig Blue, he was a close friend. I mean, he's been a close friend for years, but we were talking on a regular basis as this whole thing was happening. And eventually it became this almost a running theme and sort of a running joke between the two of us, that as one thing happened after another, as one ridiculous statement was made after another, eventually it just became almost like a theme in a sitcom or something, that we could just look to each other and in perfect unison just say, it doesn't make sense.
Yes.
It was just, there was too many things that were just, hold on a second. So, okay, so you go into a restaurant and the virus can discern that, you know, you're sitting down now, so it's not going to harm you while you're eating, but you put on your mask before you leave the restaurant, and all this kind of just wacky stuff. The 6 feet apart, you know, the idea of even wearing a cloth or even a respiratory a mask and thinking it's an air filter, which it's not. You know, just ridiculous things that we could just make things up and say, oh, this is true because I'm imagining it is.
And those of us that are in the medical community have no excuse to be so ignorant to know why we actually do wear our mask inside the medical facilities. We wear them for specific reasons, and it has absolutely nothing to do with making sure that you do not get something I have. However, because of the flu vaccine mandates that are upon medical professionals, that narrative preceded COVID So these people that did not submit to getting their annual flu vaccine were forced in medical facilities to wear a mask, like a badge of shame, or like the star that was put on the Jewish people during the Holocaust, that there was something, let's mark them, they're not vaccinated. Everybody knew it wasn't going to, if somebody came in with, if you woke up with the flu, you stayed home. You were a medical professional. You don't come to work. So it was absurd. But the question that you're giving me is whether or not, what would I score myself? I'd say an A+, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because one is, I was, of my 6 kids, I had already had a child who was a vaccine injured child. And I already had a child I'd been in the Federal Vaccine Court of Special Masters for about 6 years at the time the COVID outbreak happened. So I was in a lawsuit, a federal lawsuit against the federal government. So your average person out there isn't suing HHS, right? So I'm in a lawsuit against HHS, and by the point that COVID happened, my lawyer had left me, and he got his $75,000 of payment because all he had to do was log hours. You get paid to lose. You don't have to win in federal vaccine court, because this court that nobody even knows exists is so unjust. All he had to do was log hours and abandon me. And so I was left to be what's called a pro se litigant, where I'm acting as my own lawyer on my child's behalf. Thank goodness there's not many rules for us, because people like me who are very verbose can write extremely lengthy letters to the court and just tell them a thing or two. Because I figure if I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose in a blaze of glory, going down with lots of words written about it. So so I was that girl going into COVID, and I had already woken up to the fact that there's something wrong in the medical profession. I'm part of the medical profession, aware there's something wrong in the medical profession. And if you raise as many kids as I had by that point, and you understand germs, I'm very good. When I have kids sick with that many kids home in my home, we have a whole protocol that we go into. You're in your room, you're on quarantine. The DVD player's brought in there with a little TV and stacks of videos, and all your food's delivered to you, and nobody shares cups and drinks. And I had this concept of opening the window, blowing a fan out, making sure the pathogens are blowing out of my house. So just an awake mom that knew that. And I thought it was odd, but very compliant, that, they said we had to stay home. But the way that I started my rebellion, and I would never have said that I was a rebellious person. I would never have said that. But my goal was to kind of walk the neighborhood and just show that there is fresh air out here. We can walk. We don't have to stay inside our houses all the time. So that was my first act out, was walking around the neighborhood. I did not want to give business to any businesses that were keeping us from coming in if we didn't have certain policies. But that was prior to me getting COVID. So I had the lockdown from March until, let's say, May in Georgia. They let things all of a sudden go free in Georgia. And then we had those riots that were race-related riots. And all of a sudden, those of us that were supposed to stay inside of our homes, suddenly thousands of people could be on the streets rioting and destroying cities. And Atlanta was one of them, that was being destroyed, and it was insanity. And you're like, there's something wrong with this picture. How is it okay for, supposedly there's a big bad mamma jamma virus out there that's going to kill us all, but it's okay if we're rioting to all be in the streets. But when I was trying to share information with people about importance of fresh air and sunshine, the WHO was publishing things that said it would be like a way of censoring you and saying sunshine doesn't cure COVID. I said, nobody said it did cure COVID. I'm just saying sunshine and fresh air is what's good for all respiratory viruses. So make sure you get some. Didn't matter. Censorship. So the logic of that started, the word misinformation wasn't quite fully out in July 2020 when I got my COVID. But when I got COVID, and I had already read a lot of data, had my kids taking daily doses of things that I had already read were beneficial for their immune system to support it. And then it happened. And the way it happened for us was when the lockdowns changed and the New Yorkers, which is where you are, were finally allowed to leave their extremely high y'all had a lot more COVID than we did down here in Georgia. Okay. All of a sudden the lockdown's over and they flood to the South, right? To their homes in the South or whatever. They want to get to Florida. And my son happened to want to go to a college event. And while he was there, he got, there was outbreaks of COVID all over Florida because there had been this mass migration had already started. And COVID hit, he had 25 people in the van. Every single one of them got COVID except for one. And this is a beautiful little piece of information. Upon investigation, that kid never got COVID, still hasn't gotten COVID to this day. And the only thing he has that nobody else has in that entire bus is that he's had 0 vaccines ever in his entire life. Everybody else had some degree of childhood vaccines. So this is not about COVID vaccine. This is just about childhood vaccines. So that was like, oh, interesting. How interesting. And I'm just starting to become a grandmother at that point, maybe have one or two at that point. And I'm very anti-vax at that point. And I want to remind the audience how anti-vax people are made as I put that word out there, that they are made only 5 ways. You are either, you or yourself are either, or somebody you love, you are injured, permanently handicapped, or dead from a vaccine, or you actually read the data. Or you are lucky enough to know somebody that's one of those people. So if you read the data, there's no way you would have gotten a vaccine either. And you wouldn't let them get inside your children either. And so by the time I've been in the federal vaccine court for as many years as I have and found out it's 10 years to lose. It takes 10 years to lose in this unjust tort system. If it takes 10 years to lose your case and you know for a fact what damaged your child because you saw it happen, and that's a whole other story. It wakes you up to say something's going on and it's time to pay attention because something's not right about what's going on. And then as I opened up my own Nurse Michele account to try and help people, because I found out after I got out of the hospital, you cannot, I found out in the hospital, they were going to deny me logical therapeutics. Let me give you an example. If you can't breathe and you have a respiratory infection, it is 100% logical to expect a breathing treatment. And a nurse knows that. So I was asking for my nebulizer breathing treatment and it was denied. And I was told that the NIH had made a policy that no COVID patients could have a nebulizer breathing treatment. And I said, give me the science, the logic. I mean, I couldn't breathe. I had, 80% oxygen saturation. And this person, this medical professional said, you will disseminate the virus into the atmosphere with the steam that comes out of the mask. And I'm like, I am the virus on the virus's unit. And these are 0 pressure rooms, which means all the air is being sucked out anyways. And you have all your PPE on, give me my doggone breathing treatment. And they would not let me have it. So I had to get out to save myself. And when I got out to save myself, I found out that even the medical equipment companies were denying access to equipment to COVID homes. So that's a whole other story as well. And that's how Nurse Michele was actually born. I literally kept hearing a verse from the Bible spoken over me. My people are perishing for lack of knowledge. My people are perishing. And I'm like, I know. What do you want me to do about it? I was on a walker for a month and oxygen for 3 months. So I was pretty handicapped with COVID. And what I did was I published 5 pieces of work. One of them was what you better gather in your home because there's nobody coming to help you. Your doctors aren't going to help you. So you better get this stuff gathered in your home. Number 2, this is where you get your medical equipment because you may not be able to get medical equipment. And this is how to be a nurse for yourself because nobody's going to help you. I taught people how to hour by hour manage COVID. And I just gathered the bright doctors from around the world and put it all in one place in a very easily understandable format and a checklist for you to manage. And it ended up being downloaded about 500,000 times around the world. And I just got calls from all over the world saying, you saved our family. I've had people in Dubai literally say, you saved the city. And I'm like, what? They did not the city of Dubai. It was some other city nearby. So it was really just shocking things. And all it was just one person in a little rural place in Georgia putting herself out there doing it. And then the misinformation came, the attacks for misinformation. So that may be more than you wanted to hear, but that's why I feel like I was awake because I already knew something was very broken with the system.
Well, that's great. That's very insightful. So, of course, this is the Bassline Medical Freedom Focused Radio program, and I would love for everyone in the audience to help me help this platform grow. Please share links to all these interviews. Please download them if you would. Keep them for posterity, but also disseminate them as well as you can. But I'm a team player. I like not just my voice being heard. I don't think that the truth is any individual's property. I think the truth is something we should all partake in. And I have no problem at all directing you towards other medical freedom podcasts, which I would love for you to hear. So, of course, I would love for you to listen to the American Granddaughter podcast that is produced by my good friend and co-host Cece Blakeman. But also Nurse Michele has, as we've mentioned here today, an incredible podcast called Nurse Michele Talks. And I would love for you guys to partake in that. Please listen to that podcast, download it, share it, because the more people that are having this conversation, the faster we can actually make some change in the society. We really need these issues addressed. It's something that's so fundamental to our health, to our dignity, to the type of society that we reside in. And the biggest problem that we start out with is that people are being told it's a conversation you can't have. The conversation we need to have is the conversation you're not supposed to have. So we need to really fix that. And I would love for you, Nurse Michele, to just tell us all about your podcast, how it got started, and what the vibe is about it. What's the feel and what's the focus of your podcast?
Okay, well, the reason why I got started is because all of a sudden we were in a George Orwellian environment where we felt like we were in 1984, literally, and this word called misinformation started coming out. So I'm just a nurse out there doing the best I can to educate you. So nurses are patient educators. Our primary goal is to make sure that if there's a medical modality you've either been recommended to have done or I'm teaching you about, to make it as simple as possible so you can be as successful as possible. Because my goal was to keep people during COVID out of the ER, because I found out what happened in the ER, and there's a whole story there as well. The National Guard met me with my family at the door. Nobody was allowed to walk in with me. And that was the first time. And the second time I went in the hospital, I told my son, who is a strapping young man, I said, you do not let go of me. When the National Guard tells you to depart, you just act like you didn't hear him and just keep walking and stay with me until I release you. And that's when I went into the COVID unit. So people don't realize the removal of the patient advocate, meaning your own loved one. There's nobody who loves you more than, no nurse loves you as much as I would love to save you if you're in peril. I'm not going to love you like somebody that's your blood person or your lover or your child or your family, right? You shouldn't be in relationships with people who wouldn't fight for you. You should be in relationships with dangerous people willing to be dangerous to save you. And that was removed from the bedside during COVID. And so I became a patient advocate to people, educating people. So I'm thinking I'm just out there doing a good thing. And I started getting heavily censored, and I was being called misinformation. And my algorithm was being hit, and my stuff was being deleted by some overlords of I didn't even know, who are they that are like, who is this decision maker that was out there? So in the process of that happening, I did not know that a particular news network was out there that's an uncensored platform called AmericaOutloud.news. And some big names in the medical freedom movement, like Dr. Peter McCullough's on there, Dr. Mary Callie Bowden, and many others. I mean, so there's lawyers. Pretty much every profession is represented on America Out Loud. It's a 24-hour newscast. And Dr. Peter McCullough suggested multiple nurses for a nurse potential platform. And I was one of those nurses. And we launched with three specific nurses, myself. One was a federal whistleblower, Jody O'Malley, and another one was a person that was starting an alternative way of nursing, Kimberly Overton. So the three of us, with a couple others, launched what's called Nurses Out Loud Talk Radio in November of 2022. And by the second month we were on air, we were in the top 0.5% in the world for podcasts. And all I can say is that happened because people needed speaking. They needed to hear the truth, and our mainstream media was failing to get the basics of what we needed to hear. So that we did that, and our theme song was "This Is War" by Richard Farrell. It's a song that I think was written 6 years prior, but you would think it was made for COVID. And we wanted people to understand we are in a war for truth. And the truth is, and we would make sure that they understood whatever we revealed that day, this is the truth about this situation. You decide what you're going to do with it. So we did that for a couple of years, about 3 years. And then I launched out on my own in 2025 as Nurse Michele Talks podcast. And it is speaking truth without fear for the sake of our children's children. So it's really, I have my own kids. I have 6 kids. I have 4 grandchildren. And what I need people to understand is that if you do not do something, if you do not take the knowledge that you've learned either the hard way or whatever you've learned through this last 4 or 5 years, your children will face these tyrants again. There are tyrants about, and it appears that the tyrants do have an agenda that is not in your best interest. And it's maybe veiled in altruistic ideology that makes it sound like, it's for the greater good that we all, let's say, get the COVID-19 vaccine. That ended up being my 5th publication, is an educational document about, whether to take the vaccine or not. I didn't make a decision for you. I just asked you Socratic reasoning questions. Are you aware there's a federal vaccine court of special masters? And then I would give them the information to research. Are you aware that the vaccine court has paid out nearly $5 billion to injured, permanently handicapped, and dead children, dead Americans? And like, oh, wait, you don't know that? Okay, so if you don't know that, my first show was 20 vaccine questions for medical professionals. I wanted them to know what they didn't know, because when Nurse Michele was being so heavily censored, it was the most vicious medical professionals out there coming for me. They said I should burn in ovens at Auschwitz. I mean, they want, not only did they want my license gone, they thought I should hang. They thought I should be killed. Okay, it was that vicious that I thought, what am I going to do? And I'm going to tell you, the answer is in offense, is to play offense with them. So I said, I've got 20 questions for you. I haven't met a medical professional in 6 years that's known any of the answers. So let's see how you do. And not in 6 years has anybody known the answers, because they do not know what they think they know about vaccines. And once you become educated, you are never the same again. And I would contend that the ex-vaxxers, the vaccine abolitionists, that we all are now, it is because of education. We've taken the time to educate ourselves, or we have, like I have, a severely injured child. So when you have a severely injured child, you have waken up, not just the mama bear. You've gone past the mama bear. You are dealing with the lioness inside of us now, and we are coming for blood. We're going to watch you go down, and we're going to make sure you are exposed for the tyrant that you are by pushing a false narrative on the American people in the name of, oh, it's good for everybody. And just as I said earlier in the podcast, your fingerprint is like nobody else has ever been here before. Your DNA, if you commit a crime, it's not going to be Michele they're coming looking for. They're coming looking for you because you are identifiable. So if you're so identifiable, you certainly shouldn't ever think that anything is a broad sweeping for everybody. So there's no way the same little thing that's inside of one injection vial for a 2-month-old baby is good enough for your baby and a million other babies, because none of them are the same. So the whole concept of that is, flawed. So I'll get off my high horse for that. But I mean, I'm basically getting the stories of the people to the people, like you're doing as well. And people want to hear the stories of the people. And sadly, as you and I both know, I could never get all the stories of the vaccine injured on my podcast. I mean, they're one horrific story after another. And I have a brother who lived a life with his vaccine thinking he was one of the perfectly fine vaccinated people. He's like, Michele, I don't have any problem. I'm fine. He didn't want to detox or anything like that. And then the next thing he knows, he's out zero turn mowing his lawn, about to grill with his beautiful wife, and he drops dead. And only because I have access to the only published autopsy protocol for the world for the COVID vaccinated suddenly dead, was his autopsy able to be done correctly. And for me, an aggressive person is like, you done killed the wrong nurse's brother, okay? And get the right autopsy protocol in there, and to discover that nobody dies in our family suddenly. They all are 90-plussers. It doesn't matter how much you drink, smoke, or whatever horrible lifestyle you have. They're ornery old people, okay? He drops dead at a 50-year-old stud of a man life, and has a gigantic heart that needs pathology done to see how much spike protein is in it. We need intelligent people out there that are innovators, that are inventors, to come up with ideas for how to assess every blood tissue sample, every single thing of these people, because we know something is wrong.
It says, oh my goodness. It's there's so many things that you said there. I mean, it seems, an interesting term that I've come across in all this, which I'm going to use more readily now that I've come across it, is the idea of the military medical industrial complex. I've been an anti-war activist in most of my activism. I just don't think we should be senselessly killing people and blowing each other up all around the world. I would love for the human race to just evolve past that altogether. And it turns out I was missing a major component, which is the medical component of this industrial complex. So I think the term, the military medical industrial complex, is appropriate, because it's sort of like in a military environment, the rules are different, right? Or the police have different rules than the rules of a civilian. The police can commandeer your car, right? They could say, oh, we're taking your car for official police business. And it seems that the medical profession is sort of taking on this sort of attitude as well, that this is our jurisdiction, where we're silencing you. We don't want to hear your input about your own life experience, about what you're physically experiencing. This is our protocol. It's an emergency. You follow our rules by mandate. And it's basically, it's okay to just shut you up and administer whatever they choose to administer, or do whatever they choose to do. And this isn't right. We should have rights, right? I thought we had basic rights entering a medical environment. And it seems that we don't have the rights that you would think would go without saying. So, you make so many points there, and I'm glad you also use that term vaccine abolitionist, because the listeners, the people who have been tuning into this program from the beginning, we just had our 2-year anniversary a couple episodes ago. This is the 107th episode of the Bassline. So episode 104 was our 2-year anniversary. And when I started this program, I made it clear, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I just didn't like the way the whole COVID thing was happening and the coercive means by which those shots were being forced on us. After interviewing any number of people, I became an anti-vaxxer. And at this point, I've graduated from being an anti-vaxxer, and I'm officially a vaccine abolitionist. And I'd like for more and more people to use that term, because, again, like you were sort of mentioning earlier, it takes us off of the defensive. It proudly states who we are, rather than being this anti thing that exists in opposition to this other point.
We know exactly what we are against, and we know exactly what they have done. We have the children, the friends, and family that are part of the carnage from what has been done, and to deny. And we know that the vaccines in general are a pharmaceutical product, but sadly, the propaganda has infiltrated the minds of the majority of the American people to believe that the vaccine is in some kind of really special category that may have come down from some heavenly creature of some kind, and that it was brought here to this earth to save us all from certain death had these vaccines not been invented, and that we would all just be dead and burying our children now if it's for that. But hello, I want to wake up the public to say it is 2025. This is America. If we're such an advanced medical society, I think we know how to take care of measles, or at least Nurse Michele does. Okay, so Nurse Michele can tell you how to take care of a respiratory infection that has a rash. So it's easy peasy, and we know what to do. And only a rare population of people are going to have a problem with that, just like a rare population of people are going to have a problem with COVID, and a rare population of people are going to have a problem with most other illnesses like flu. There's a certain criteria that's going to make you at higher risk for basically any kind of infection that comes your way. But guess what? This is America. We're supposed to know how to take care of medical problems like this. And those of us that are in the medical freedom movement that are dedicated to educating you, that's our goal, is to educate you. And one of the things I do is Nurse Michele, Salt and Light Nurse Consulting, where you can come in. I think everybody should probably have a nurse for their family, so that when you get information or whatever, you get a diagnosis and you need some help, somebody with medical knowledge that's not a doctor, that's just going to be an educator for you, is going to educate and empower you maybe before visits or to help you navigate a medical condition. And most people that don't have access to a friend or that is a nurse doesn't have that advantage. So there is a way to get it. And I think it's a way of just educating yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry if you happen to, or if the audience can hear that grinding sound in the background.
I didn't.
Okay, if you can't hear it, that's great, because it's incredible that here I am, I'm interviewing you, and they have to do this grinding kind of construction work or whatever they're doing, like right outside my window. But that's New York for you. And that's live radio, in this case, pre-recorded live radio. But we do like to be solution oriented. And after writing all the articles I've written and all the interviews that I've done and hosting Stop the Shots every night, now I'm getting a little bit anxious to propagate these ideas, to get more people involved in this conversation. I don't want to exist in an echo chamber. I want more people recruited into the movement. And I would love to hear some thoughts from you in terms of what should we focus on as a medical freedom movement, and what can the so-called average person do? A person, they're not a doctor, they're not a lawyer, they don't have some grand title next to their name. What can ordinary, quote unquote, of course, nobody's ordinary, like you said, we all have our own unique fingerprint, but what can a so-called ordinary person do to help in this movement?
Okay, so first of all, you have a primary role to protect your own family and your life yourself. And you don't think you have to do that because you think if you're going to go to a hospital, of course, that's where I'm going to get my help, right? Well, there's a problem within the hospital and the medical system. It is a medical system. So there's things that you'd be doing. I'm about to be interviewing Laura Bartlett. She's been on Stop the Shots before, but I'm going to be having her on the show. That there's certain kind of paperwork you need to have in advance that's on your person before you get there, so that if you're unconscious or something like that, it's in your advantage to have these kind of things already well documented. And you're in a very, significant state that has a lot more restrictions on it, where I'm in the South, and there's not as much. But even here in the South during COVID, it was just as radical as anything could possibly be as far as restrictive. So, and people, and for the record, a lot of people fled your state and flooded my state during COVID, and
Yeah.
my housing market has been completely destroyed ever since. I mean, you used to could afford a house, but when you have a New Yorker that lives at the cost of living that you're used to living, coming down here and saying, "What? I can get 5 acres and a pool and 6 bedrooms and 5,000 square foot for what I pay for rent for a studio? I'll take it." So they came down here, and now my market is almost impossible to find affordable housing anymore. And why did they come here? There was more freedom here, right? And so even though there was more freedom here, we still have a system that looks like it's been hijacked by powers and entities that do maybe own the medical system, the medical industrial complex. Document when I go inside of a hospital, I ask them for paper copies, and I mark all over it. I'm very obnoxious about it. I take time to do it. So that's something you have to do for yourself and for your family. When it comes to your children for vaccines, just saying things like when babies are about to be born, I try to tell you that when you're in a hospital, it's not good to have a target on your back and tell them that you're a vaccine abolitionist. Save that for people like Nurse Michele, who don't have any babies in my house anymore, who I can make more for you. But while you're there, I just want you to protect yourself and your baby. And the way you do that is by saying, well, we're going to have our pediatrician do the shots after we get out. We're going to do it a little bit late, a couple of weeks from now, and don't let them inject your baby with anything while they're in the hospital. And that's your first line. You've gotten outside of this complex, and now you're home, and you can do whatever you want to do, and have your nice homeopathic and naturopathic pediatrician who would never want you to vaccinate that baby. And I tell people, like, if you have an emergency with a kid and they ask you about how many vaccines is your child up to date on the vaccines, it's a good idea to say something to the effect of, "Oh, my child's up to date on all the vaccines they ever needed," because you don't believe they ever needed any of them. So therefore you're speaking the truth, and they literally don't care what your answer is unless you say no. Okay. So they're not going to check up on you. So that's a way of protecting your children. So that's a primary thing, is protecting yourself and your children. If you're a COVID vaccinated person, we do believe that there has been something harmful done to you, whether you have symptoms or not. My brother did not have symptoms. He is buried. So it is important that you listen to what I'm about to say. There is a autopsy protocol. I'll make sure Jeremiah has it for his show notes if he wants to. Yeah. And I think it's in your interest to go ahead and have a copy of it and shrink it down, have the printer shrink it down, and put a note inside your wallet that in the event something suddenly were to happen to me, I am COVID vaccinated, and I would want this protocol, this autopsy done on me, because guess what? If you die suddenly anywhere, you're going to have an autopsy anyways. So it might as well be a good autopsy done well, and there's some documentation of the crime that was done to you, because your family and your loved ones will want you. They will want justice for you. Okay, so that's one. But the next part of our battle is waking people up in your community to, we do have a problem, Houston. And how can we do that? And there is a very easy way to do that. Let's just say that this story, this interview that Jeremiah is doing, you think is valuable, or any other one that Jeremiah is doing. You get it and you copy paste it and you put it in a text to as many people, especially if they're 40-year-old plusers, and you put it in a text to them and tell them all they have to do is push the button and go. And the easier we make it, like I was talking to Jeremiah today about getting him pushed out onto podcasts. getting the forums, whether it be on Rumble, because you can find Nurse Michele Talks on Rumble, and I hope you all will follow it.
Yep.
I just launched that because you can share that kind of link. Now, the problem with Rumble is people have to create an account. And so there's all these stumbling blocks for technology. And not a lot of 40-plussers listen to podcasts for whatever reason. But I would say if you want to be aware of what's really going on in the world, you better learn really fast how to access podcasts. And if you have an Apple phone, there's always an Apple podcast app there. If you have, I'm not sure, Jeremiah, I just have this feeling that you are an Android person. Is it true?
You got it.
Yep,
Right.
you're the person that messes up all group chats.
Yeah,
So that's how I look at y'all. But anyways,
yeah.
what is the podcast app called on an Android phone?
I don't know. Good question. I mean, the Bassline is
Okay,
on Podbean, but yeah, I'm not sure about the generic Android.
so almost every smartphone has a podcast button, and you all need to know it, and you need to start following podcasts. And then when you see something amazing, learn how to share it and get it out there. And as far as medical freedom goes, as solutions, I feel like we're part of what's called the parallel medical system, which
Yeah.
is here's the failing medical system on one side, right? And here is the new medical freedom model that's on the other side. And I hope we bankrupt the other system. And how do we do that? We do that by, you don't just think every time you have a medical problem, you just call up your GP because you're paying out the wazoo for your insurance, and you go in there and find out what pill they're going to give you. Instead, you schedule a nurse consult with one of the many nurses that are out there trying to help you kind of navigate what's going on with you and give you some guidance on maybe what you could do at home that won't require you to have medical intervention, or will tell you what kind of specialized interventions you need and guide you to sources of wise sources of health. So I think that it's important that we all start finding lists like the American Frontline Doctors and other lists that Dr. Mary Talley Bowden and Dr. McCullough, I mean, there is TWC and others that are out there that are trying to help you get off of all the prescriptions you're on. Anyone that's like 50 plus is apparently on as many as 10 pills a day, so, or on 10 prescriptions. We would like you to recognize that that's a path to debilitation, not a path to freedom. And that ideally, those of us that are in the medical freedom movement want you to have the most vivacious, healthy, vibrant, happy life you possibly can. And that is not going to be found in the system of pharmacia, pharmaceuticals. It's going to be found in somebody empowering you with knowledge to help you know how to get to the next level of wellness, whatever your issue is. Because some of us, I sit before you as a person with 15 major medical diagnoses. So I am a person that's a complex medical. Some of us were born with bodies that have really rare things inside of them. And so when we have rare things, we are faced with the medical community more than others. And if you're out there, you feel more vulnerable. Trust me when I say you need to find patient advocates that are out there that will just talk to you and be a voice to you. And that will start you on your freedom process to finding the good ones in your specialty area. I was just with my son for a cardiac visit yesterday. Brilliant man. I really like him. But they did not ask whether or not there was a COVID vaccination in my son's history. And when they were talking about his potential enlarged heart because of a medical problem, I said, well, aren't we glad he didn't get the COVID-19 vaccine and let it linger in the air? And his answer was, yeah, we're really seeing an uptick in our practice of major medical with cardiac issues going on. He said, we just didn't know what was really going to happen with that vaccine. And I made sure he understood that it is not accurate at all, that in as early as February of 2021, there was data being published. And yes, myocarditis was listed by April, May, and June of 2021. So you are without excuse to plead ignorance. So we're dealing with a medical community that is either feigning ignorance because they're ashamed of themselves, or they are truly ignorant. And that's the last kind of doctor you need to have as a medical care provider. So that's a big answer for solutions.
Well, that's a great answer, and I love how you address that. So we are nearing the end of our discussion here. Unfortunately, there's a bunch of other things I'd love to talk with you about, but we'll hopefully get a chance to talk again soon. But while we have time, I want to make sure that everyone knows how to follow you, how to support you. How do people find you on X? How do people listen to Nurse Michele Talks? You mentioned Rumble. How do people keep track of all your outstanding work?
Okay, so nursemichele.com. I am Michelle with one L. My parents wanted the French version that would make sure I was unique in this world as you all go off to France. And that means nobody ever spells my name correct. So
Right.
nursemichele.com. And on there, you'll find nurse Salt and Light Nurse Consulting there, where you can pick one of 3 nurses. I'm one of them that you can schedule with. You can have a free consult for about 10 minutes and decide if it's something that would be a good match. So that's an option for you there. Any podcast that I've ever done, I have a blog there with the visual, video interviews, and the show notes and any links to anything. I have a store for some things that I represent that are there as well. As far as the listening to podcasts, if you want to just listen, I'm on all the major podcasts: Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it, Twitch. I'm out there. So just look for Nurse Michele Talks and podcast, and you will find me there. If you're a Facebook person, yes, I am out there as Nurse Michele and Nurse Michele Talks, but I'm hardly on Facebook. I don't really navigate it well, but I'm very active on Instagram, and it would be called Nurse Michele RN is one of them, and the other one's called Nurse Michele Talks. And then on Twitter, which I love, I think that that's really the platform. If you're not a technology person and you're wanting to learn one, I'd say Twitter's probably the freest space to talk on right now.
Yeah.
And so you can find me at Nurse Michele RN, also known as Nurse Michele Talks on Twitter.
That is excellent. Yeah, please, folks, please follow Nurse Michele on all of the aforementioned platforms. Please partake in Nurse Michele Talks, the podcast. I'm sure you will be enlightened by it. And yeah, we do have a couple more minutes, I guess, before we wrap up. So yeah, I mean, we've covered so many things today, and I want to just thank you, first of all, for taking the time to be here, and thank you for joining us on Stop the Shots. And thank you just for all that you're doing. It's really incredible, and I do think you offer a very unique perspective to the conversation, and you clearly have vast experience informing your unique perspective. And yeah, I guess to continue with the solution-oriented mindset, I do want to say that I think progress is being made. I think it's really frustrating to wait for people to wake up and to wait for the right thing to happen when it should be done right away. But would you agree with me that we are breaking through, that more people are getting involved in this conversation, and there are some things to be optimistic about, to be positive about? For example, and I actually played the clip a couple weeks ago, I'm still absolutely blown away by the comments by Dr. Stephen Hatfill, who went right down the line, just demolishing the claim that the COVID injections are in any way positive. He acknowledged the injury and death, and then said the thing that people are far too reluctant to say, I think, which is that there's no proof of this claim of so-called symptom reduction. And he went on to say that the paper that claimed that the shots had saved 14 million lives, in his words, had been ripped to shreds. So the fact of him saying that, to me, changes the ball game altogether, because previously we were in a situation where we were hoping someone in an official position would acknowledge any of those truths. And now we have an official statement from a government official, not just a quote unquote rogue doctor, but someone in HHS who went right down the line saying all of these forbidden truths. But then the next question is, how come he's not making that statement from a podium similar to what Fauci was given? Why is that being stated on a particular podcast, a partisan podcast, where people continue with all their partisan nonsense instead of saying this has nothing to do with partisanship? These are medical facts as they pertain to the human race, the human organism. So now we're in a different phase. First, we wanted people to acknowledge these truths. Now they've been stated, and we want policy and things that correspond with the realization that was stated by Dr. Hatfill, and hopefully more truthful statements to come. But would you agree that it's a different situation than it was a year ago in terms of, or 2 years ago, or wherever you want to make your cutoff line, in terms of there are more people being engaged in the conversation? Wouldn't you say so?
I think that mainstream media is failing to get that information out there. So it is literally up to the independent podcasters and news sources and why it's so important for people to get those independent sources, because they do not know. They do not know names that you and I respect. They do not know who Dr. Peter McCullough is. They do not know who Nurse Michele is. They do not know who these major doctors and that have been publishing major pieces of information. They do not know that their own doctors were sent letters from the American Medical Association during COVID that said, if you say anything about this COVID vaccine that's bad, we're coming for your license. If you knew that your doctor that you think is in your advocacy corner was threatened, would that not change the way you look at bureaucratic organizations that are overseeing your doctor? I think that even needs to change. Like, forget that kind of organization. We only need elected people, or people. We don't need people dictating whether or not a doctor can practice or not, because they actually wanted to provide proper informed consent. So I do believe that everywhere, Nurse Michele Talks is a proper name for me, because I definitely am going to speak everywhere I go. My kids literally, before that cardiac appointment with my son yesterday, he's like, Mom, don't talk about COVID here. I said, well, you know what happens. Doors open and Michele just has to walk in them, and the door always opens, and I make sure it does. If you are at a checkout, they are your captive audience. They are stuck with you until your groceries are in their bag. You should be opening your mouth and saying something about something. Do they have a mask on? Are you being made to wear a mask? Or did somebody say that you had to? Do you believe you have to wear a mask? Have you read about such and such? Or did you get the COVID vaccine? Have you had any problems? Do you know about such and such? Here's something that could help you. Maybe you keep it in your purse to help these people. But there is something to do. And here's the question is, you're asking me, is it getting better? All I know is everywhere I go, people are, one, acting like they know something happened. The agendists, the globalists, that thought they had played their card really smart in 2020 definitely messed up, because I do believe they have woken up the masses to say, wait. If you're acting like this over the COVID vaccine, now I'm wondering about everything about the whole childhood vaccine schedule. And the new stats are that apparently only 80 something percent, or no, it's 35% of mothers and pregnant women are submitting to childhood vaccines now. So we are winning. And what did the American Academy of Pediatrics do in response to that? They pushed for lobbying for you not having a right to get your child, having a choice to get no vaccines for your child unless you have a medical exemption. So if the bureaucrats are telling your doctor what they can and cannot give an exemption for, and you want a medical exemption, it's over. They have declared war on the American people's children. Your children and grandchildren, war has been declared on them. And you either recognize that and you're going to act accordingly and do something about it, or you're going to just say, yeah, I got woke up in 2020. You are not helping anything by watching the news and listening. The only thing that will help change something for your children's sake is action. And that action is going to be at whatever level. I believe at the community level. You're not going to allow the bullying of the medical community in your hospitals and in your doctor's offices. And you're going to make sure your local congressman, the local people that can actually make a difference in your own community, aren't going to stand for something that's going to oppress you when the tyrants that we didn't successfully take down yet try to do it again, because they will try to do it again, because look how much ground they did gain. They saw how much they could make people submit, and they won. They won that battle, and they'll do it again. And the only way that we can keep them from it is by action on our part, not just talking. Talking is the first part, but we have to do something too.
Absolutely. Well, those were profound words, and I can't imagine a better ending to this discussion. So I want to thank you again, Nurse Michele, for joining me today, and thanks for all the great work that you're doing. And just keep up the great work. You're truly an inspiration. Thank you so much.
You are too, Jeremiah.
Thank you.
Open arms towards the sun, you feel the warmth of the rays, and then you know you're alive, and you don't have to be afraid of anything, cause you know the truth, and the truth is love. Yes it is. Wasn't what they said to you, or anything that you learn from a book or from the news. It's not like that, cause it's a thing. It is something that you do. bone, baby, did low. Doop doo doop a doo, doop doo doop a doo, doop doo doop a doo. Did bone, baby, did love's the highest truth. Nothing could be higher than love, my friend. Love's the deepest truth. Nothing could be deeper than love, my friend. When you stop and you take the time just to think about your life, you'll recall the ones you love and the ones who were always there for you. Better thank those friends better. You better make amends. Go and tell them now, yeah, yeah. Tell them what they mean to you. Doop doo doop a doo, doop doo doop a doo, doop doo doop a doo. Dear bone, baby, did love. Doop doo